Welcome to our page, where we're going to learn, shop, and decorate together at Fran's Cake and Candy Supplies. Hit the subscribe button to follow.
Hey, this is Steph with Sweet Little Morsels, and in this video I'm going to show you how to cover a cake in fondant. And this is the fondant we're using today. Let's get started. We're going to need a rolling pin, some Fondant Smoothers, a Fondant Edger, a pizza cutter, a paring knife, some powdered sugar, and a small sewing needle to get those air bubbles out later. Now let's prep our fondant before we roll it out and put it on our cake. You want to make sure that your fondant is soft and pliable. So to ensure that, we're going to knead this like as if we're kneading a small ball of bread dough. What I'm doing here is just taking the palm of my hand and just pressing it right into the center of that fondant and then continuing to rotate it and just pressing in. So using this motion, this will ensure that it'll be nice, soft, and stretchy, and it'll make it much easier to roll out. Do this a few times until it feels like soft Play-Doh. And once you get that nice consistency, go ahead and flatten it out into a small disc, and we'll get it ready to roll out on our surface. Next, we're going to take some powdered sugar and sprinkle that over our work surface. This will keep the fondant from sticking and will also help it spread out much easier. Place the fondant in the middle, grab your rolling pin, dust a little powdered sugar on top of that. This will also keep the fondant from sticking to it. Now starting in the middle, we're going to roll back and forth using firm pressure. This will help spread the fondant out a lot easier. Rotate your fondant and continue to roll back and forth, making sure to use firm pressure to spread it out. Now be careful not to lift your fondant every time you rotate it. If you lift it, you could cause possible air bubbles or tearing when you go to cover your cake. Don't worry too much about those air bubbles on the top. We will pop those with our small sewing needle next. Continue to roll out your fondant until it is wide enough to cover your cake. You want to make sure to roll out your fondant to about 1/4 inch thick. If you roll your fondant out a little too thin, there's always a possibility of it tearing when you cover, so just try to keep it to 1/4 inch thick, no thinner. Now I'm just rolling out and rotating it one more time and just feeling for any thick or thin areas and just making sure that I'm evenly rolling it out. Run your hand across it just to make sure it feels good all around and check the thickness, and you should be ready to go. With our small sewing needle, we're going to go ahead and pop out those air bubbles that formed on the top. Run your hand across after every time you pop one, just to make sure that you smooth over any little marks. Once you're done, we'll be ready to cover our cake. Place your rolling pin in the center of the fondant you just rolled out and grab the bottom end and fold it towards you. Grab your perfectly iced, chilled cake. Yes, you want it perfectly smooth and cold before you cover it, just like you see here. Grab both ends of your rolling pin and you're just going to place the fondant in front of the cake and you're going to roll the fondant towards you. Now take your Fondant Smoother and we're going to press the air out of the top of the cake. Now while I was doing this, I had a very big air bubble pop up on the top there, so I'm just going to take some time to press that out with my hand. Now this step is really important. You definitely don't want any air on top, otherwise you'll have issues later. So make sure to get that air bubble out. Just going in and smoothing it one more time, really making sure I got that air bubble going so I don't have any issues later. And just going over it with my Fondant Smoother to smooth it out, so I have no wrinkles on the top or marks. Now secure the top of your cake here. This part is really important. You don't want your fondant to tear as you're covering your cake, so make sure to secure the edge. Just taking my hands and just rubbing back and forth, this friction will really help get your fondant to stick. And I'm just making sure I have no dust or lint particles before I continue. Now go ahead and fluff out the bottom of your fondant, just gently. No need to pull down on your fondant when you do this step. So just fluff it out, but don't pull. Starting from the top, I'm just going to smooth it as I rotate my hand and work it to the bottom. So gently start from the top, rotate your hand down, and smooth it until you reach the bottom of the cake. And I'm just using my other hand to stretch out the fondant, or spread it out. Like I said, when I use the word stretch, that doesn't mean pulling. That just means I am just smoothing it out so I can continue to go around my cake and smooth it down without any wrinkles or creases. So continue to do this. Just rotate your cake as you go around and take your time with this. There's really no reason to rush. And just keep in mind, you don't want to pull. If you pull, you'll most likely tear your fondant. So just continue to go until you reach the bottom of your cake. Now this is where I come to the end. And I just have my hand right under that last crease you see there. My hand's right under there, and I'm just using my other hand very slowly and just gently guiding that fondant down, making sure that I have no creases. Now I'm just going in and smoothing out my cake, making sure it's really, really stuck on the cake there before I cut it. So take your fondant smoother, smooth it over, really make sure it's nice and smooth, no creases, no marks. And you should be ready to cut off that extra fondant. Now take your pizza cutter and we're going to cut off that excess fondant we have on the bottom there. This you can reuse for other fondant decorations or to cover another cake. And I'm just getting as close as I can to my little cake base there before I use my paring knife to cut up against the cake. Now I'm taking my paring knife and slowly and gently just going around my cake as close as the edge as possible and trimming off that extra fondant that I don't need. This is going to give me a nice clean edge on the bottom, and I'm just rotating my cake as I do this. And it'll just look really nice and clean, and I won't have to worry about adding a border to it. Now I'm just using a cardboard cake underneath just to protect my work surface from my knife, but I'll remove this before I put it on my actual cake board I'm using to decorate the cake. Just taking my fondant smoother now, smoothing out the base there and the rest of the sides of my cake, and just once I'm done smoothing my cake, I'm going to take this Fondant Edger, and what this is going to do is this is going to give me a nice clean edge on the top of my cake. So I'm going to go around my cake a few times, just going back and forth, and as you can see, it's already starting to make my edge look a lot cleaner. So continue to do this until your edge looks the way that you want it. If it's sticking to your cake a little bit, just take some powdered sugar, sprinkle it on top, and continue to smooth. Once you like the top edge, go ahead and smooth around the cake one more time and get it prepped to attach to your cake base. And I'm just going over it one more time. Now I'm just going to dust off any extra powdered sugar or dust particles that I might see and just feel for any dents or air bubbles and smooth those over. And I'm ready to decorate my cake. So just remember to be patient, take your time, and have fun. And practice makes perfect. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe to Fran's Cake and Candy Supply YouTube page.